Welcome to this explainer. Right off the bat, we're going to tackle the ultimate cricketing question using cold, hard numbers. Everyone's asking it. Can Virat Kohli realistically reach the monumental milestone of 100 international centuries? Today, we're going to set aside the emotion, ignore the hype, and look strictly at the math to see if this mountain can actually be scaled. To really grasp the journey ahead, we first got to look at exactly where the king currently sits. He's at an absolutely staggering 84 international centuries. We're talking 30 in tests, 1 in T20s, and a record-breaking 53 in one-day internationals. I mean, it's a tally that already cements his legacy in the pantheon of the absolute all-time greats. So, just doing the simple math, that leaves him exactly 16 centuries short of Sachin Tendulkar's legendary 100-century milestone. Now, 16 might not sound like a huge number when you've already hit 84, but his recent retirement from T20 internationals has completely altered the landscape of this chase. It is a massive variable that changes everything about how we project his future numbers. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Can he realistically score 16 more centuries playing exclusively one-day internationals and test matches? By focusing primarily on the 50-over format in white ball cricket, he's effectively narrowed his own runway. Those hundreds have to come from a very specific pool of matches against top-tier bowling, all while the clock is constantly ticking. When you put the numbers side by side, it perfectly frames the classic greatest of all time debate. You're contrasting Tendulkar's massive career-spanning volume of runs against Kohli's unprecedented efficiency. Sachin gave us over 18,000 runs, basically inventing the modern attacking ODI opener role. Kohli, on the other hand, has evolved into the ultimate chase master, boasting a completely mind-bending average of nearly 59. But, and this is absolutely crucial to remaining objective here, we have to contextualize the eras. Tendulkar built his record in a much tougher bowling environment. One new ball meant heavy reverse swing, and his supporting cast averaged around 40. Kohli, meanwhile, has maximized modern rules with just ruthless consistency. He's playing with 2 new balls on flatter decks, with a much stronger support cast averaging around 48. Both of these guys dominated their respective environments flawlessly. So how does this actually translate to the real world? Well, if we look at the BCCI's newly unveiled 2026-2027 home season schedule, it's incredibly brief. It leaves Kohli with merely 9 ODIs across 3 series on home soil against the West Indies, Sri Lanka, and Zimbabwe. When a player narrows their white ball focus down to just one format, their opportunities are strictly bound by the fixture list. And frankly, this list is very, very short.
Zooming out a bit to the broader runway leading up to the 2027 World Cup in South Africa, realistic estimates suggest Kohli only has a total window of about 29 to 40 ODI matches left before that tournament wraps up. And that's factoring in all bilateral series, the Asia Cup, and assuming India goes super deep into the 2027 World Cup itself. The opportunities here aren't infinite. They are highly quantifiable and strictly limited.
And, complicating this whole timeline is a recent admission from Virat himself. He literally stated, "I don't know what I want. Value has to be 2 sides." It's a really human element that reminds us his continued participation just isn't unconditionally guaranteed. He isn't going to just hang around to chase a record if he doesn't feel that mutual value and inner drive. Now, there is definitely some good news on the physical front. The BCCI reportedly still views Kohli as one of the fittest cricketers in the entire world, and they've deliberately separated him from Rohit Sharma when judging fitness for 2027. While Rohit is facing concerns over hamstring injuries and load management, Kohli is still out there grinding away at indoor facilities at Lord's during his time off. His relentless dedication to elite fitness is totally unquestioned. Okay, let's get into the brutal math. Let's assume his fitness holds up perfectly, the schedule plays out exactly as expected, and he plays every single one of a projected 32 matches leading through the 2027 World Cup group stages. That's 32 trips to the crease to make history. To hit those 16 centuries needed in that incredibly small 32-match window, he would have to score 100 every 2.56 innings. Let that sink in for a second. Every 2.5 times he walks out to the middle, he would need to be raising his bat for a century. To put that into perspective, his career average, which is already mind-blowing, is 1 century every 5.6 innings. So to reach 100 by the World Cup, he would essentially have to score twice as fast as his absolute unprecedented peak. It requires an acceleration at age 37 that completely defies the normal laws of athletic aging. Statisticians have actually crunched the numbers on this, and the probability of him scoring exactly the required centuries in these next 32 matches is approximately 0.000106% per match. Honestly, you probably have better odds of winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. The statistical odds are just astronomically stacked against him achieving this strictly within the upcoming World Cup cycle. Even the absolute legends of the game are validating these statistics. Brian Lara recently pointed out in an interview that defying age to score that many centuries in the twilight of a career is a monumental and perhaps impossible task. As Lara noted, most cricketers can't even score that many centuries in their entire lives, let alone right at the tail end of their careers. What if we assume he enters absolute God mode again? Even if we project his remaining matches using his absolute best, peak purple patch scoring rate, meaning he bats as well as he did during his most unstoppable phases, the math still only brings him to about 91 to 93 centuries by the end of 2027. So even in a dream scenario, the 2027 World Cup is not the finish line for the 100-century chase. To actually bridge that gap to a perfect 100, we have to look well past the World Cup. He would need to end 2027 with around 9100s, somehow maintain a workload of 10 to 12 ODIs a year, and then extend his ODI career for another 4 to 7 years. That pushes him well past the age of 40. It would require incredible longevity, flawless form, and a massive continued desire to just play bilateral one-day cricket. But here's the real takeaway you should leave this explainer with. Even if the strict math says the 100th century is out of reach, Kohli's legacy is completely bulletproof. I mean, he holds the outright record with 53 ODI hundreds, he's the fastest to 14,000 ODI runs, he's single-handedly pioneered an elite fitness culture in Indian cricket, and he is the unmatched master of the run chase. His impact goes so far beyond just a nice round number. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up today. If the math makes 100 centuries virtually impossible for Virat Kohli from this point forward, does it even matter? Has he already achieved everything a single player possibly can to prove his greatness? Think about what truly defines a legend. Is it the final number on a spreadsheet, or is it the era-defining impact they had every single time they walked onto the pitch? Well,